30 years ago, if you paid to watch football, you were treated like an animal. Quite literally. Go to an away match and you'd be herded off trains by police with dogs and horses, marched from a train station to a stadium, where you'd spectate from behind fences or, in many cases, inside actual cages. Paul Mitchell was given a warm reception by many Birmingham fans as he departed the pitch, despite having assaulted Aston Villa player Jack Grealish. For home supporters, treatment was little better. Stadiums were often uninhabitable wrecks. For years, we suspected these places were death traps, and at Hillsborough, in April 1989, those fears were proved terribly correct. Back then, as a football supporter, you were considered a second-class citizen, a pariah. So much so that Margaret Thatcher's government was legislating for an ID card scheme, requiring you to prove who you were and disqualifying you from going to watch different teams. As a teenager in the 1980s, these were my formative experiences. Try explaining it all to current teenagers, the more fashionable half of whom have their own personal football blogs or YouTube channels, and they'll struggle to believe you. But back then, loving football equated you with the scum of the earth. So as the dust settles on a Birmingham City supporter attacking Aston Villa's Jack Grealish, we probably shouldn't listen to former Blues player David Cotterill advocating armed police to mow down future pitch invaders. It's time for a deep breath and foot on the ball. PA Press Association. PA Images. Players of both teams intervened after Paul Mitchell ran on to hit Jack Grealish. Football-related arrests have halved within a decade. Although Birmingham have suffered more arrests than any other English club in each of the last 3 seasons. What we've witnessed is a man with a brain the size of a plankton making a blindside run up to a footballer he doesn't like and punching him in the back of the head. Yesterday this pond life was sentenced to 14 weeks in prison. Hopefully in solitary, with Grealish's winning goal playing on a loop. But although Birmingham City might want to explain away the pitch invader as a lone lunatic, condemned by the right-minded majority, the reaction of fellow supporters suggests that thousands supported his actions. Plankton Man, named in court yesterday as Paul Mitchell of Cockhall Lane, no sniggering in the public gallery, was cheered off as a hero. PA Press Association. PA Images. Paul Mitchell was eventually led away, but clubs must be told the punishment for having pitch invaders will be stronger than just a fine. And when Villa boss Dean Smith claimed he was applauded by 15,000 idiots, it didn't sound as though he was exaggerating much. Back in the day, those who campaigned for football supporters' rights, and who wrote with wit and intelligence in the early fanzines, rightly argued that there always was a vast majority of decent fans deploring the blight of hooliganism. It is difficult for Birmingham to argue any such thing. The second city derby has become the most overheated fixture in English football, with a bad history of crowd disturbance, and it needs the cold flannel treatment. If both teams remain in the championship next season, the St Andrews fixture ought to be played behind closed doors. If either is promoted, then another major Birmingham home match. Fines are irrelevant. Pitch invader punches Jack Grealish in the middle of Birmingham City versus Aston Villa. Of course many thousands who genuinely decried Mitchell's actions would suffer, but a genuine deterrent is needed to ensure such actions can never be regarded as anything other than deplorable criminality. Likewise, the Arsenal fan who ran onto the Emirates pitch and shoved Chris Smalling, soon after Grealish's assailant had been applauded. Arsenal must also be put under a warning of ground closure. This has been a bad year for fan behavior at football grounds. The abusing of Raheem Sterling at Stamford Bridge was a vile, high-profile incident, but not an isolated one. This may reflect an increasingly angry and divided society, but many problems are also specific to football. Hatred has become normalized in the game. Clubs and football authorities could do more to tackle it. Stewart pushes and knees Jack Grealish before being hauled out of St Andrews by police as Aston Villa star scores winner against Birmingham. And while the Birmingham derby had a midday kickoff to combat drunkenness, cocaine use at football is an increasing menace. The standard of stewarding in grounds can vary wildly from excellent to ridiculously poor. Clubs should ensure stewards are paid decently, trained and motivated to help. Security is also bizarre. Attend as a home fan and you're unlikely to be searched. Attend as a journalist and it's pretty much a full cavity job, especially at Old Trafford. Now is not the time for hysteria, but neither is it a time for complacency and inaction. No one wants a return to the dog days of the 1980s. Least of all those of us who were there. West Brom axing Darren Moore was an insult to the strength of the Championship. Awful on all levels of the 24 relegations from the Premier League over the past 8 years. How many times have those clubs managed to win automatic promotion the next season? Twice. Yet West Brom fired Darren Moore because he'd only guided the Baggies to 4th in the Championship rather than the top 2. This sacking did not merely represent a bad day for underrepresented black managers. Neither was it just shocking treatment of a club legend, contrary to the footballing zeitgeist which values one of our own. It was also disrespectful to the competitiveness of the Championship. We all stop and stir. You can add me to the list of those advocating Raheem Sterling as Footballer of the Year. It's not just his extraordinary stats over 2 seasons, 33 goals and 20 assists in 60 Premier League appearances, but, more importantly, the way Sterling challenged us in the media to think harder and choose words more carefully in order to avoid racial stereotyping. He was right, he was brave and, slowly but surely, his words are making a difference. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer reacts to his first domestic league loss this season while Arsenal's song and dance Bernd Leno sounded as though he'd been chilled to the marrow. "You will never forget something like that," said the Arsenal keeper. "You don't want to see it again, so we were motivated." What unforgettable atrocity could poor Leno have witnessed? It was Jesse Lingard moonwalking to celebrate a goal when Manchester United won an FA Cup tie at the Emirates. Not exactly Keenan Vieira stuff. Don't look back. It's Angus, the single attribute which separates great goalkeepers from good ones. It's not agility, distribution or the command of a penalty area but concentration, that ability to pull off a brilliant save after long periods of inactivity. England keeper Jordan Pickford struggles in that area, as was obvious in Everton's defeat at Newcastle, and Burnley's Tom Heaton isn't the long-term solution either. By the Euro 2020 finals, the smart money is on Southampton's Angus Gunn, a favourite of Gareth Southgate in his days as under-21s boss, being England's number 1. Cardiff 2-0 West Ham. Bluebirds see off hammers but still stay in bottom 3. JAV will earn a bad reputation in West Ham striker Javier Hernandez's last 3 games. He has scored with a deliberate handball against Fulham, dived to win a penalty at home to Newcastle and was booked for another dive at Cardiff. If referees are going to start judging Hernandez on reputation, then good, he deserves it. Equality all lined up. WHO says footy hasn't taken big steps towards gender equality. 8 years ago, Richard Keys and Andy Gray claimed women didn't understand the offside law. Now we're 100% certain that linesmen don't. James lays down the law surely in England.